We're outside for today's video, which I think is apt because today we're going to be talking about grounding. If you're a highly sensitive person or you've been through quite an intense awakening journey, you have probably struggled with feeling grounded and embodied at various points in your journey. It may be something that you're struggling with now, especially as the conditions on Earth are becoming increasingly more volatile and tumultuous. And so today's video, I have decided to share 10 tips that you can apply immediately. They don't really cost you anything and will allow you to start feeling more empowered in your experience to come back to yourself. What's really important at this pivotal time on Earth is that we start to become reintegrated, that we start to really connect to a sense of empowerment. And while we can't control the conditions of the reality around us and what's happening on the world stage, we do indeed have governance over how we respond to our experience. And so if you're feeling ungrounded and you're feeling disembodied, what I'm going to share with you today is going to really support you to feel more empowered with connecting to your humanity and connecting with your divine nature, but in a healthy and integrated way. Hello and welcome to Temple of Akasha, the home of embodied spirituality with me, Natasha. I hope this video reaches you well. I know things are a bit cray-cray on the world stage. I mean, that's to be expected, right, given the times we're living in. But it is quite challenging, especially if we are spiritually inclined or we have an awareness of the multidimensional nature of reality. These times can be really, really challenging, especially when it comes to staying grounded, lucid, and embodied in our human experience. And so that's why I wanted to make today's video. As someone that has been on a very tumultuous awakening journey, especially after my Kundalini rising event, I know firsthand how scary it can feel to feel very disconnected from a sense of stability and safety in the body, which is really what we're dealing with when we're feeling ungrounded, and being able to kind of root and anchor back in the present moment, connect in a stable way to my sensory experience. It has taken me years to feel consistently grounded, consistently embodied, and I would love to be able to support other people who are feeling that way to return to a state of empowerment, because it's possible. If I can do it, so can you. And I thought that before we dive into the 10 tips, it might be helpful to just touch on why we feel ungrounded and why we often struggle with embodiment on our spiritual awakening journey. This is multi-layered, but at the heart of the issue, when we're struggling with feeling grounded, we're struggling to feel embodied, so in the body and really connected in a lucid way to our present moment experience, it's usually because there is something in the present moment and in our felt sense experience, which we experience through the body, that we are struggling to be with. So this could be conditions in our reality. You know, in extreme cases, it could be things like war, but generally it could be things that trigger us and are difficult for us to feel safe around or to feel connected to in a healthy way. This can be an emotional state that we're struggling to be present with, to acknowledge, to sit with. It could be sensations in the body that could be emotional or physical pain. It can manifest as nervous system dysregulation, which will often show up for us as anxiety and panic attacks. So we might experience this as feeling very erratic, feeling very scattered, feeling unable to slow down, and like there's a lot of momentum in our systems, coupled with a sense of apprehension. It can be because we are struggling to be with a traumatic imprint or survival stress, which is linked to the things I've already mentioned. And it could be because we just generally don't feel safe in the body, which is also very linked to the things that I've already mentioned. Ultimately, when we're trying to re-establish a sense of connection to the body, to feel embodied and to feel grounded in our human experience, what we're looking to do is to foster a sense of safety in the body again. So this is a process. If you are someone that has been in states of feeling very ungrounded, very scattered, very disembodied, it may take time for you to cultivate a sense of safety and connection to your body again. But please stay with this process. It's so worth it. I have been on this journey myself. I know what it's like to live in those states, and I promise that with the tools that I'm sharing with you today, which will cost you nothing, it's really possible to feel safe in your body again. So without further ado, let's dive into today's 10 tips. Slow down. If you're feeling ungrounded, if you're struggling to feel embodied, if you're feeling scattered, you are likely dealing with some degree of nervous system dysregulation, which means the fight-flight response of your nervous system. This is a response in your body's intelligence that is sensing on some level that there's a threat in your reality and is gearing up to either fight that threat or flee from that threat. So you might be experiencing anxiety, an elevated heart rate, adrenaline pumping through the body. And so one of the first things we want to focus on when we're in these states is slowing down. The temptation when we're in these states is to rush, because that's what the system is wanting to do. It's wanting to move energy quickly in response to a perceived threat. But if you're not actually in a dangerous situation, and this is a conditioned response, it's really helpful to come back to the present moment and to recognize, okay, I'm running on autopilot. I'm running on a momentum that is not actually required for my current situation and doesn't feel healthy or helpful for me at this point. And so slowing down, being very intentional with how you're moving, how you're breathing, how you're going through your day-to-day experience is going to really help. So before I give any other tips, I really want to emphasize this. When you're feeling ungrounded or scattered or disembodied, slower is always better. Be mindful, really focus on presence, slowing down the momentum of the mind, which often feeds the body's responses, and it becomes a feedback loop, and allowing yourself to give yourself some space to really be with what's here, and then slowly begin to tend to your experience with more love and more conscious awareness. Reduce stimulation. If you're feeling ungrounded, it's likely that you're also feeling overstimulated. You may not be aware of this, but it's usually a sign from your system that there's too much going on and you're struggling to be with all of that. Even if it's not conditional, it may just be that there's too much happening within your system and you don't have the nervous system capacity to hold it. So my second tip for you is to really be mindful of what you're interacting with in your present moment experience, which may be adding to the burden on your nervous system and your general ability to feel present and to stay connected to the body. One of the biggies here is device interaction and really unmindful use of social media, scrolling on the internet, being engaged in lots of tasks at once, so lots of kind of scattered multitasking, or even being in environments that are overstimulating and overwhelming, like busy crowded areas, shopping centers, grocery shops, etc. If you're feeling ungrounded, I really advise you to bring yourself away from situations and environments that are overstimulating. Give yourself space. This is going to really help you to start feeling safe enough to come back into the present moment, back into the body, so that you can again start tending to yourself with more care. The third tip I want to share is the utilization of your awareness. You get to govern where your attention, energy, and awareness goes. So when you're feeling ungrounded, you're likely focusing a lot of your awareness on the heart center up. This is mainly because a lot of the trauma that we're holding, a lot of the emotional content that we're struggling to alchemize, tends to reside in the lower three centers of the body, which in yogic philosophy are sometimes referred to as the ego centers. But in this case, I really want to just focus on the fact that these are the centers most concerned with our humanity and our human experience, which we know is tricky. It's polarizing, it's distressing, it's hard being a human. And so there tends to be a lot of content in these lower centers that we don't want to face, we don't want to be with, and we want to kind of escape up and out of, which is why the awareness tends to be focused on the heart up. Generally, during ungrounded episodes, it will tend to be in the ajna or the crown, and you'll likely feel that you're kind of floating or very scattered and above the body or outside of the body. So your awareness is key in you starting to feel embodied. My suggestion is to bring your awareness as close to the earth as you can get. So when I was feeling very ungrounded, I would often put my awareness in the soles of my feet. This is far enough away from the torso and the lower primary centers for you to not have to directly face any very challenging emotional trauma content that might be present, but it is still focused on the root center. It is still focused on root energy, and it's focused on you allowing yourself to be connected to your roots, to the earth, to re-establish Sushumna, which is the central channel, which allows you to feel fully embodied and fully coherent as a being. So my suggestion is, if you can, focus your awareness in the lower half of the body. If it's accessible and it feels safe to you, you could focus your awareness in your center. For most people, that tends to be between the hara, or the womb, and the solar plexus around the navel center. But the main thing to focus on here with your awareness is to keep your awareness in the body. When we're feeling ungrounded, our awareness tends to be outside of the body. This is especially true for empaths and people that are very highly sensitive to the energies around them. They'll often have their awareness outside of the body. I invite you to bring your awareness into your body. Make your focal point, your vantage point, your point of reference. So you're moving from your center. You're making sure that you are your primary focus. You are your place of orientation rather than everything and everyone else around you. This creates a sense of victimization and victimhood, as though things are happening to us. So when we make the switch of bringing our awareness back into our body, we retain and we regain a sense of control and governance over where our energy and attention is going. Are we going to war? Lots of planes flying overhead, military planes. Just wait for them to pass. All the more reason why we need this video, I think. Anyway, body scanning or Vipassana meditation is also really helpful if you're feeling ungrounded, and is a really good way of directing your awareness. So that's simply just taking your awareness and slowly allowing it to melt through the body, either from the crown all the way to the tips of the toes, or conversely from the tips of the toes all the way to the crown of the body. Take this nice and slowly. Repeat it as many times as you feel you need to. This is a really wonderful way of just bringing your focus and awareness back to you. Sound. I absolutely love utilizing vibrational medicine and sound as a healing modality. I've slowly been made aware of the impacts of this as a result of my Kundalini awakening, because the energy often moves through me as sound, as light language, as song, as chanting, as mantra, as humming. And it's amazing to observe the vibrational impact that sound has on our systems, on our energy, even on the environments around us. So utilizing sound, utilizing the power of the voice center is a really effective way of grounding yourself. It's been shown in studies that humming or chanting stimulates the vagus nerve, which really helps to govern very essential bodily functions like heart rate. So it's really helpful to utilize the tool you have, the instrument that's built in and ready to go, which is your voice. You might just start with general chanting or humming and just allow yourself to focus inward on the vibration and the felt sense experience of that. You might wish to sing songs that feel comforting to you. You might wish to chant mantras, or if there is a particular center, primary center of the body that you're struggling with, you could use the seed mantra in relation to that chakra or that primary center to support the balancing of that center. In ascending order from root to crown, the seed mantras for the 7 primary chakras are Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham, Om, Om. So I recommend chanting these mantras if you know that there's a certain area of the body that's requiring your awareness, your love and your energy more, and utilizing the power of sound either through your own voice, or you may wish to receive sound medicine either through sound instruments in a sound ceremony, or perhaps through binaural beats or isochronic tones, which are really easy to find online on YouTube, for example. I really believe that the ancient technology of sound is going to be one of the most fundamental aspects of our healing journey in the future, in the time to come. So I really recommend trying this out for yourself. Let your intuition guide the way with this. You may already feel called to move energy through your throat center in an organic way. Let the sound come and try to remain in a state of non-judgment with whatever sound does want to be released. Movement. When we're dealing with embodiment, we're wanting to feel more connected to the body, and one of the most effective ways to do that is through moving the body. Now, as as we've already mentioned, slower is generally better when we're feeling ungrounded. So you may wish to start with something like a yoga asana practice. If you're feeling really ungrounded and really unsafe in your body, I recommend something like yin or restorative yoga, which is very slow and it really supports you to focus on just the breath and the posture and deepening into body sensations. You might also wish to try maybe hatha yoga, which is a slightly more fluid way of moving, but again, it's focused on a slower pace. Vinyasa and Ashtanga are quicker forms of yoga asana. I wouldn't necessarily recommend those if you're feeling very, very ungrounded. When we're focusing on movement that's going to support grounding, whether it's through yoga asana or any other practice, it can be really helpful to, again, focus on the lower half of the body. So in our yoga asana practice, there are many postures that can support this. Goddess pose or horse pose with the legs wide and rooted on the ground. Malasana, yogi squat, is another great one. The tail is sunk low to the ground. It really supports rooting and anchoring. Mountain pose in a very embodied way. So really, really making sure that you've got lots of integrity through the body when you're standing in mountain is also a very effective grounding posture. And then if you're wanting to move into more intuitive movement or intuitive dance, stamping can be effective, snaking the hips can be effective. I really invite you to let your body guide the way with what kind of movement wants to come through. But again, focusing on slower, intentional movements, but allowing yourself to be dynamic, because as energy moves, more layers of emotion may emerge. And for example, if you hit on a layer of rage or anger, it may feel cathartic to start moving more vigorously. And so I really invite you to lean in and to listen to your body's guidance with this process. The breath. The breath is always with us, and so this is a really fantastic tool that we can utilize very easily to start encouraging a sense of grounding and embodiment. A very simple practice is just starting with intentional breathing, just beginning to bring your focus back to a slow and steady inhale and exhale. You can do this through the nose, or perhaps you may feel called to allow the exhale to come out through the mouth and marry that with an audible exhale, which might support a vocal release as well. Another great pranayama or breathing practice is Nadi Shodhana, which is alternative nostril breathing. You've likely seen or heard of this before. I have another practice which I'll link somewhere around here for you to do, which includes a Nadi Shodhana practice, and it really supports balancing the hemispheres of the brain, balancing both yin-yang energy in the body to bring more harmony and coherence to our systems. Again, slower is better when we're focusing on pranayama and we're feeling ungrounded. Let your breath be your anchor. Let the ebb and flow of the breath become a comforting motion that you can stay very close to through your experience to start bringing you back into the body and back into the present moment. Nature. Nature is medicine. Our bodies are of the earth. We are part of nature, and yet we live very fragmented and fractured lives away from nature, often in very inorganic environments with lots of false light, lots of inorganic frequencies. I don't think we really appreciate as a society how much this inorganic interference impacts our organic software, our organic energy. So I really recommend for you to go into nature. Take yourself close to the earth, whether that's in a seated position. You might feel like lying on the earth. I've often done that when I'm feeling very ungrounded. I'll just sprawl out and feel really connected to the earth in Shavasana. You might wish to ground through earthing, so barefoot, feet on the ground, connected to the earth. For me, one of the most helpful things I can do when I'm feeling ungrounded is finding a nice big tree, asking that tree's permission for me to lean on it and to be in its field, and then I will allow myself to sit against the tree's trunk. I've observed myself in very ungrounded states and how long it takes me to generally start descending my awareness back into my body. For me, I probably need about 20 minutes if I'm feeling really ungrounded. So I invite you to really be patient with this process. It can take a while. I just invite you, wherever you are in nature, to close your eyes and allow yourself to start merging and blending with the vibrational emanation of the earth. Allow yourself to start recognizing that there is organic life around you, that there is aliveness and support around you in nature, and that her frequency is actually really essential for your body to feel in a harmonious state. If you don't spend much time in nature, and you often find yourself in rooms with lots of artificial lighting, surrounded by lots of people, lots of machines, lots of electronics, lots of equipment, connection, I really advise you to take time to be in nature, because we are of nature. And so our modern lives really sever us from naturally occurring processes in the body that allow us to feel grounded and embodied. Coming back into nature is part of that repair process, to recognize that we've been severed from our natural way of being, and that the ability to reconnect lies with us, and that there is tremendous medicine to be had in that reconnection. Connection. If you are feeling ungrounded, scattered, or unsafe in your body, one of the things that we're often in need of is a sense of safety. And one of the most essential ways that we feel safe as relational beings, as humans, is in connection. Oftentimes the reasons why we feel unsafe is because we've had unsafe relational experiences, and our bodies are in some way reliving those responses. And so finding a healthy sense of reconnection, either to ourselves or to others, can be a really helpful way to start feeling grounded and safe in the body again. If you're alone, you can start to foster this by yourself, either through actually hugging yourself, which is something that I've done a lot on my journey. Don't feel ashamed of embracing yourself. It's a really powerful tool. It often brings on emotional releases for me. Or you can do it through more gentle, what I like to call body scanning massage. So it's just allowing yourself with the tips of the fingers to run over the body, perhaps from the crown or over the feet, over the backs of the hands, and just allowing yourself to feel touch, to feel yourself held. Touch has an incredibly healing impact on our bodies. So if you are on your own, touching yourself in a very safe and gentle and sensitive way is in itself a very therapeutic thing you can do. And if you have access to people around you that feel safe, I also recommend asking someone that you love, someone that you care about, someone that you feel safe with, to hold you, to be with you, whether that's in an embrace or holding hands, or just allowing them to be in your space, and allow yourself to receive nourishment from that person. What's key with connection is that we are starting to re-establish a sense of loving connection again. Not just connection, but really making sure that there is an attitude of love in that, whether it's with ourselves or someone else. And that leads me really nicely onto tip number 9, which is emotional release. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, so much of why we feel ungrounded is linked to emotional stagnation, really challenging felt sense experiences in the body, and or trauma, survival stress that's stuck in the body and that we struggle to be with because it doesn't always feel safe to be with that energy. If we are feeling really ungrounded, scattered, we're really struggling to be in the body, it's a real indication that there's something in the experience that we're struggling to meet. So that can be thought forms, but more likely it is actually something within the body landscape that we're struggling to be with. Our need for emotional release is often like a pressure cooker. You know, if we don't have any space to release the energy that is being experienced and flowing through us, it starts to create a sense of constriction, tension in our systems. And as that builds in intensity, it can become really, really challenging to be with. And so much of the medicine is actually in allowing, oh, okay, so the reason I'm feeling ungrounded, I'm feeling unstable right now, is that actually there's a lot of pain in the heart center, or there's a real sense of helplessness and powerlessness in my navel center. Giving yourself permission to actually feel what you're feeling, to not run, to not escape, but to actually sink in and lovingly be with what's here. This is some of the most important medicine that you can give to yourself, and it's a really essential part of our integration process. You can't skip this one. So if you struggle to do this alone, I really recommend finding a practitioner that's going to allow you to foster a sense of safety so that you can actually start to access your emotional landscape again and move that stagnant energy appropriately. One of the things that I've done a lot over my journey of reconnecting with myself and my body again is start to tune into what I need to feel safe to have an emotional release. So much of our ability to be in states of surrender to what's here, and in this case emotion, is safety. So what I used to do as I was going through my own journey with therapy and moving a lot of trauma was I started to hone in on what is it that I need when I'm feeling really emotional? And it will depend on what's coming up. But if I'm in very fragile states, if I'm feeling very raw and vulnerable, what I tend to need is a lot of cocooning. So I really invite you to lean into, what do I need to feel safe enough to really kind of nurture my emotional landscape and experience? So for me, that was like wrapping myself in a blanket. Sometimes I'd even make these like blanket forts. So I was like completely encased in a womb-like structure. I would play music that helped me to feel really safe. Oftentimes, because I'm a real geek, it was like a Lord of the Rings ambiance or something like that. You know, there's like a really good Rivendell ambiance on YouTube. I loved listening to that. It made me feel really safe, and I would be in my womb structure. Sometimes I'll wrap myself in a blanket, I'll close the blinds or turn down the lights so that it feels a little bit more restful in my space. So I really advise you to get clear on what conditions you need to tend to your emotional landscape in a way that's very compassionate, you know, and your conditions around you really will support you to be able to have an emotional release. It's actually a much more important factor than I think a lot of people speak about. So I really invite you to lean into this for yourself. Maybe it's putting some candles on, maybe it's burning incense, and maybe it's shutting the door. Generally smaller, more enclosed spaces where we feel kind of wrapped up, bundled, especially if we're dealing with inner child fragments. This can feel like a really kind of holding way and can often then allow us to drop into deeper states of safety so that we can actually have the emotional release that we need. And my final tip for you is food. So when I was going through my Kundalini awakening, I found myself regularly drawn to dense foods because I was feeling so incredibly ungrounded with the surges of energy that were moving through me that I was using food as a tool to anchor again. Now, what your body needs moment to moment is going to be very nuanced. Although it's very tempting to go to sugar and dense foods, carbohydrates when we're feeling quite ungrounded, and to soothe ourselves with food, I invite you to see if you can find some healthier alternatives just so that you're actually making loving choices all round for yourself. But one of the things that I really noticed on my journey was how much caffeine affected me when I was feeling ungrounded. And it's actually a substance that I've almost completely phased out of my experience now. For me, it doesn't work with my body. It doesn't work with my awakening experience. And I've found that more and more people, as they become more highly sensitive on their journey, will often struggle with caffeine as well. Pay attention to the substances that you're taking in, the foods and drinks that you're taking in, and notice what impact they have on your body. Also, eating lots of food that's going to create big fluctuations in your body, like lots of sugar, for example, it's going to spike your blood sugar, and then you're going to crash, you know, and your body's going to go through these kind of feast and famine states. It's better for our systems all round if we can try and foster states of harmony and regulation rather than these big highs and lows and volatile states within. This is not going to help us with feeling grounded at all. You might find that eating meat or dairy helps you. You might find that eating kind of whole grain bread helps you. Again, I invite you to lean in and listen to your personal experience. I'm not here to dictate what food choices you should make for yourself, but I do think that food and drink plays an important part in our overall kind of body's functionality. And actually, if the body landscape isn't clean, if we're eating foods that are creating stagnation in our systems, that's also going to put added pressure on the ability of energy to flow freely through the body, especially if you're having a Kundalini awakening. And that's actually going to create more tension, which may lead to you feeling even more ungrounded. So your food choices really matter. I hope this has been a helpful sharing for you today. I know this journey intimately, so I know what it's like to feel ungrounded, and I promise you that the things I've shared with you today have been tried and tested by myself. They're things that I'm very familiar with and that I really recommend, and I do advise you to stay with these practices. I really invite you to take good care of yourself during these really tumultuous times we find ourselves in. You can only truly serve the world in a sustainable way when you're serving from overflow, so don't empty your cup to try and be of service to this world. Make sure that you're tending to yourself well. If you implement some or all of what I've shared today, I guarantee you're going to see big changes in your experience if you are someone that's highly sensitive and really struggle with embodiment. I hope this has been helpful helpful for you. If you're not already subscribed and you're looking for support on your awakening journey, I invite you to join our community here. And if you found this helpful and think there might be other people that would benefit from it in your field, I invite you to like and share so that my content reaches the right people. A big thank you from me and all of the natural life that's been with us today, mainly horseflies, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the next video.